You'd best get comfy for this one. It's gonna be big. Welcome to another First Impressions. Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff. It's First Impressions time and we've got a big old kit to look at today. This is a 1:350 scale Takao 1942 configuration. It's the updated edition and it's from Aoshima. So this is the 2011 release of Aoshima's kit, which was originally released in 2007. And I think what they've done is some of the original aftermarket has crept in the box for future releases. It's not the last release of this kit either. There's been 3 more releases of this kit each time with more parts added. In fact, there's 11 iterations of this kit, but this is the 2011 one. There's lots to go through, but let's first of all talk about the Takao. So the Takao was actually a class of cruiser, Takao being the lead ship, and ordered in the late 1920s, launched in 1930, went into service around about 1932. She saw out the war and surrendered in 1945, September of 1945, to the British, who subsequently sunk her in 1946, using her as a target ship, which is something the British did with quite a lot of ships after the war, and the British weren't the only ones to do it. Famously, the Americans did it with the Prince Eugen. But a lot of decommissioned, worn-out British ships were also used as target practice by the British as well before they broke things up. But she was sunk as a target ship. So the Takao had quite a busy and successful wartime career. She supported a number of landings and did some commerce raiding, sinking British, Australian, US Navy ships in the process, and quite successfully breaking up and sinking a number of convoy cargo vessels. She was also quite successful against aircraft in the support of the Aleutian Islands, invasion of the Aleutian Islands. She managed to take out a flying fortress and a number of Curtiss P-40s. She was involved in battles at Guadalcanal, East Solomons, and also involved in the sinking of the USS Hornet. She was damaged several times, upgraded several times, usually with anti-aircraft guns, and eventually she was badly damaged after a limpet mine attack by British divers, and they got a Victoria Cross for that operation, I seem to remember, which did serious damage to the hull, and at the time of surrendering there was just a skeleton crew maintaining the ship, and she was out of ammunition, but she was the sole survivor of her class. One of the interesting features of the design of this ship, which was taking the learnings from a number of different classes of ship when she was built, is the funnels. You can see we have one that's raked backwards and one that stands upright, which had been an issue with their lighter cruisers, and eventually all Japanese funnels started raking backwards. But yeah, you can see a lot of the design development of Japanese Navy ships of that period starting to come out in this very interesting looking ship. Let's take a closer look. So our box has some lovely artwork. It got some pictures of the completed model. We have some information, a lot of it in Japanese. The sides of the box have just what's on the top. Then we have more Japanese, which I'm guessing is a history, and then some close-up pictures of the model. As we look inside the box, we've got our instruction manual, we've got separate paint chart, we've got our bagged up plastic parts and some form of box. And there is lots of plastic in there. So without further ado, let's have a look at the instruction. So our instruction manual is a landscape format, black and white, stapled booklet. And on the front here we've got the box art replicated again. Tells us it's an Aoshima kit and the address of the company. And it tells us also that it's a 1:350 scale injection plastic model kit, part of their ironclad series. Japanese Navy heavy cruiser Takao 1942. I'm not sure what retake means, whether that's referring to the model or something to do with the ship. We'd have to do more research and closer understanding of the ship's history to understand that, I would think. As we open up the instruction books, there's a lot of text here in Japanese. It's pointing points out on the ship, so I guess it's to do with the development of the ship, but we get a nice line drawing, shows us what we're going to get. And then what appears to be information about the specifications on that page, again all in Japanese. And then when we get to this page, important information concerning this model kit, then we've got some different languages, but it basically is, you know, read the instructions carefully, take your time, that sort of stuff. Then when we get to page 6, we have our paint instructions. It's basically just giving us a colour. There doesn't appear to be any brands highlighted, but they are referencing Mr. Colour here. So we might be able to cross-reference. I think that might be the Mr. Colour paint reference, is it? The H numbers. I don't use Mr. Colour, so I'm not fully sure, but I think that's the Mr. Colour paint reference. So it says the white box is the paint number, the black... white box is aqueous hobby colour, black is Mr. Colour. Can't mix aqueous hobby colour and Mr. Colour, right? Okay. So it's giving you two different paint systems there, aqueous and Mr. Colour. So yeah, so we can cross-reference all of those then. Interestingly, we've got a number of Imperial Japanese colours included in there. So I don't know whether that means that there's a camouflage version at some point, but at some point this ship had an absolutely gorgeous green camouflage. And if it's in keeping with the time period of the ship, it would be lovely to do that, just for a change from all the grey that we do. Okay, so then we've got a line drawing of the completed ship showing the aircraft on her catapults and where to place the flag. And I think that's decal references, and that looks very much like we've got depth marks, so that's brilliant. That's making me happy already. Right, so the build starts with the stand, and right before that we've got lots and lots of instructions: how to apply decals, bending photo etch. We've got our key there for through the build. all in Japanese and English and another language I'm not quite sure, telling us we need to what tools to use and some glue, but we start with our display stand, and then we're building the first half of the hull. We've got a lot of hull supports in there, and our rudders appear to be in polycaps, so they will be movable. And what is nice about that is that we'll be able to paint them separately and then just plug them in when we want. So Hasegawa do that as well, and it's a nice way of working. I think Tamiya do on their more recent kits as well. Then in step 3 we're adding nuts, which will be obviously for the display stand, so that'll be a nice strong fix. Then we're adding our anchors, build keels, then the propeller shaft lines are going in. They appear to be single parts, so no doubt there'll be some cleanup on those, there usually is. And then we add our propellers. Step 7, and we're dealing with the deck, and there's a lot of drilling to be done, which is good. It means that we've got lots of separate deck fittings rather than molded in ones. And then it's showing, I think it's showing the positions of all the part numbers, so I like that. So rather than just doing it this way, where you've got the call out of the part, you've also got that, so you've got a cross-reference view without all the parts in the way. So I actually really like that. It's a nice way of working. So we can see here we've got individual bollards going on. We've got what appears to be mushroom vents going on around there. That's what I'd expect those to be. Pretty much, with the exception of the deck hatches and the bonnets, everything else seems to be separate. We've got polycaps being put in for our main guns as well, so it's very reminiscent of a Tamiya kit. And we can see here we've got separate cable reels, some separate lockers, and gun cleaning kit. And then as we come to the this step here, not quite sure about the flow of this. We then got the capstans going on, and more bollards. I said those were bollards, but I think that looking at it, they're mushroom vents, because there's the bollards there. So lots and lots of individual detail going on. I love that. Then we're doing exactly the same with the stern deck. We've got holes to drill out, and then it's telling us where to locate the points again. Lots and lots of mushroom vents, and then cable reels, winding gear. We've got some booms going on there, some form of rear capstan as well. And then they're quite busy steps, aren't they? I mean, that whole page was step 8, so quite busy steps. We've got 3 steps on this page now, so again, more drilling out and location of parts. We seem to have a little strip of deck here, so that's interesting. That's joining the 2 decks in some way. Yeah, it's a little odd, isn't it? I've not seen that before, but interesting. In fact, when you look at step 11, you can see that it's going in with a big centre bit missing, so I think we've got even more deck to go. So quite a complex build up of the decks actually. More polycaps, so all the guns will be on the polycaps. We've got the marigold going in at the front. Step 12 is dealing with this bit of missing deck. So that's going in, as is the torpedo tubes. We can see we've got appear to have two different types, two of each. They're clearly handed, and then we've got more mushroom vents going in, and then our side bulkheads for the central section are going in along with that deck. Then we have some not quite gun tubs but gun positions with some splinter shields, and our first bit of superstructure going on in step 13. More mushroom vents, the rear bulwarks, and then we're putting on that upper deck. So that's going to look, when you look through there, quite busy. Now these had canvas covers, so you could if you wanted to make some canvas covers up out of some tissue paper and cover one or two of those up just for effect. It's always a nice thing to do, adds a bit of animation. And then in step 14 we have another section of deck going in, this time with all of our aircraft catapult tracks going on. Load more cable reels and more drilling. Please make a hole from the back side of the deck. So quite a bit of drilling involved in that, but I don't mind. Step 15, this is lovely. We can see that we're attaching the gauzy cable, what they're calling electric wire, around it. A number of separate parts that have all been molded to shape. I'm assuming these are plastic. I suppose they could be photo etch, but that is really nice that that's included separately. It's going to look absolutely perfect once you've got that on. That's a really nice touch, so love to see that. Tamiya don't add that into their kits, so you have to buy extra, so I really like that. And I've got to say, I'm really impressed with the build process. It's very logical. At this moment in time, there is nothing I would do differently. This is my natural way of working, building up the decks at a low level. So building center up and out is my logic usually with ships, and what they've done is they've done exactly that. We've put all the low level stuff on, and then we've started to put the higher structures on at the next level. You could probably put this lot on before you put the deck fittings on, but to be honest, you really want the decks in for rigidity, so it makes sense. It really does make sense. It's lovely. Step 16 and 17 are dealing with the build up of the funnels. 3 funnels in all, but 2 of them joined together to look like one. So as I said earlier, this is sort of the first time that they really looked at this raked funnel, and then we see that carry on through future ship design. And quite an unusual sort of teardrop shape as well. So the Japanese had no qualms about messing around with design and stuff, and they learnt at a huge pace. When you consider this was a ship designed at the end of the 1920s, so only 30 years before they were buying all their warships from other countries and not really building their own. It was an astonishing feat of engineering and design. Then we're starting work on the bridge, and it's actually telling you that we're working on the bridge, so that's really handy. And it is, as we go through this, shouting out the different paint colours. Now it's interesting because as I look at this, what we've done, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different paint call outs on these various parts at the start of the build of the bridge, and it's all the same color. So rather than doing it 9 times, they could just say paint everything H83. But anyway, there you go. They are calling everything out as you go, which is really handy. But it does appear to be the same colour all the time. Got a couple of different colours there for our navigation lights, but otherwise you're on Mr. Hobby 83 all the way. observation deck being built up there with the binoculars and things going on. I'm wondering if that's a clear part. I'm hoping it is. Then we've got some gun platforms and bits and pieces going in. As always, Imperial Japanese design and structure is always quite a complex looking thing. Then as we go to step 19, we're continuing with rangefinders and the like going on. Quite a busy bridge with fire control, anti-aircraft guns. Remembering this is the 1942 version, so there would have been more modifications, I'm sure, done. And then we've got some larger structures, probably vents, I would imagine, going on. Step 20 is our main mast. That looks like it's going to be suitably busy. Then step 21, we're putting the bridge, the funnels, and the galley chimney in. You can see there they're showing you the orientation there, so you can get all that right. So some separate pipe work, so that's very nice as well. Should look add to the raise of the detail. Step 22, we're plugging in the mast and putting that in, whatever that is, I'm not sure. And then we've got some structures being put in. Not quite sure what they are either. I think a platform runs across them, if I remember. And we've got some ventilation or exhaust pipe work of some type going in. Step 23, and we've got an anti-aircraft platform going in with its directors. Then we've got more anti-aircraft guns, machine guns, and searchlights. Look like they're two parts, so I think they're probably solid plastic, and they're going onto their little tubs there. Then we're building up the mast, which has a crane boom on it as well. So what becomes standard approach, if you think about the Megami, we have exactly the same approach on there, and tone and stuff. So we're seeing a standard approach coming together in the ship design. Then we're building up main armament, all very familiar Japanese format. Looks like the guns clip onto mounting points to allow them to swivel, so our blast bags are moulded in. Not sure if we can get brass barrels for that, but yeah, we'll have to paint those carefully separate. So it is nice to see a different paint number being called out there. Then we're building up our catapult. That rear mast goes on along with the two catapults. I'm sure they're in polycaps as well. Then we're putting our guns in, and the rear guns in, step 32. Page 18, and on the top there we've got an overhead view just so you can reference which guns went where, because there's clearly some differences. We've got 228s, 227s, a 26, and then it's telling us where to place the ship's boats, which we're about to build up. So all of the ship's boats seem to be two parts, so probably a slightly more simplified build up than in other kits that we've seen Imperial Japanese Navy ships, where the tarpaulin tends to be a separate part and so on. But we do have three different types of boats, which is good to see, and we can see them being mounted in place there, and the davits being mounted onto the side of the ship. So that completes 36 steps. Step 37, we appear to have anchor chain, so that's nice. Jackstaff going on there. Then we have flags being made. I'm not quite sure what that is. That's some form of cage going over the anchor there. Rear flagstaff and separate propeller guards, so hopefully they will look about right. Then at step 39 we drop down to our aircraft, our seaplanes or float planes. So we have two different types. They're being made up generally in the standard way that you see Tamiya and other people do it. And we've got all our paint instructions and decal instructions in the bottom corners there, so the whole build can be completed in that one step. So step 41, we're putting decals on, the folded down davits, some swing booms, and then we have, I'm not sure if that is a bit of photo etch or whether it's a decal. I think it's a decal of the depth markers there. The flag was put on a previous page, and then we're mounting it onto the stand, and it's asking you to cut out this and glue that on the stand. I'm not sure. Maybe not. And then on step 42 seems to be an alternative stand, so that's what we put the nut in for at the start. So I'm assuming that's included in the kit, and you've got two options depending on which way you go, which is nice. I personally like the look of the pedestals. Yeah, so and we've got some bolts to go through. So you can bolt it down onto a display base or something, so no doubt we don't have that in the kit, I'm sure. And that completes the build, 42 steps. If we turn over, we then have our sprue map. So they ask you right at the top here, check for any missing parts, and please contact me to the service centre of our company. Okay, so you can see we've got a lot of sprues in here, and yeah, it does look like we've got two different stand types. So that's really nice. And then the sprue map continues on to page 23 there. And then we have the list, and then for Japanese use only, a return slip, decals and paper flags. So that's interesting. There we have it. That's the instructions. Let's look at the paint sheet. So although the instructions do call out our paints, they have a separate paint sheet which gives us a forward, back, top and one side view, but they're clearly the same. And then we've got our list of Mr. Colour paints, doing the same format as in the instructions with Aqueous and Mr. Paints, and then listing our colours. So I'm guessing all of these are used in different places, but I couldn't tell you where some of them are being used. But we seem to have what they call Imperial Japanese Navy Grey, so a little bit of research to understand which Navy Yard she would have been painted in. But they appear to be going for a dark grey for the funnel tops rather than a black, which is interesting. How this is basically working is you're looking for that colour on the map, and that's sort of telling you where to go. So the tan they're using as the wooden decks on the boats, for example. Still not quite sure what that is. If anyone knows what that is, I'd be interested to know, because I haven't seen that before. So I don't know what that is. Seems to be in wood brown, whatever it is. Anyway, there we have it. It's a really nice sort of thing you can stick up on your wall when you're done. Okay, so in the bottom of the box we have another box which has an image of the basic completed model, and we can see here that it's referenced in the kit, so we know we've got the right thing. So let's have a look at what we get in the box. Okay, photo etch is the first thing that's jumping out at me. So yeah, there's quite a bit of photo etch in there actually. We'll have a look at that more closely in a moment. We've got our decals, clear parts, quite a few of those. Why we've got so many, I don't know. Our display stand pedestals, some plastic parts, the plastic aircraft, our some more plastic parts, our fasteners, and some sort of rubber, which turns out to be how they've done the degaussing cable. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it's a rubberized. I wonder why they've done that. Well, rubber degaussing cables, I've not seen that before. But you can see it's all cut out into its little shapes and sections. It's got all numbers, so you had that full page of referencing, so it should be easy to put together little dabs of CA. You can see it's got the fastener points on it. That should be alright. Right then, let's deal with the contents of the box first. So we have a single bag that's sellotaped down, and when we open that up, we've got inside multiple things. So we've got our poly caps for a start. So we've got 8 of those in total, so they'll cover the rudders and the main guns as we've seen. We've got our little zip bag which has our separate chain, so it's a single length of chain that you've got to cut to length. It's a little bit shiny, so it'll need a bit of matting down, but otherwise that looks fine. And then we've got a set of decals just for our aircraft. They're not the best decals in the world, but they're not awful. They're a little bit thick, and I can see that we've got a sort of a print that's slightly offset to the decal film, so you've got more decal film on one side than the other. You quite often get that with circles, don't you? And then we've got the decal flag, so I like the fact that we've got decal flags. We can put them on some foil and make them look the part, and they're better than the paper flags. For me, the paper flags never really work, although I mean, Tamiya do it with all their ships, but actually if I fold that in two, you can see my problem. You can see the witness of the red on the other side coming through, so if you don't perfectly align it, it looks very, very odd. So I'm not a fan. Some people I know really like the paper ones. And then we've got another set of decals, this time with our depth markers on, and more roundels for the aircraft. What I'm not seeing is any lettering for the ship's boats or anything like that, so they could have put more decals in, but that's what I really want to see. That's what I really want to see. I'm so glad they've put them in. Brilliant. So I'm going to put these back, and I'm not going to put those other parts back in with the decals. I'm going to leave the decals in their own separate bag because they've got no protective covering. Just stop them getting damaged, and then we can put them within the instructions. So photo etch, this must be some of the added parts. Now, I didn't see a lot of photo etch in the instructions, but we've got quite a bit here, including railings, which I didn't think we had. So we have an upgrade set included, but the instructions are going to be separate to the main instructions. So let's have a look at that now and see what's covered off. So we've got separate colour sheets, 2 of them A4. Can't see that there's a natural start and end, but this looks like the front. So we've got some instructions here on painting and bending. We've got a little key there, little sprue map. So we've got 3 different frets of etch, and then we've got some important instructions, 8 of them. So do not leave the product in the direct rays and in high temperature and high humidity. So keep out of the sun, basically. So then we've got some pictures of the model with the photo etch in. So this is lovely that we've got this included in the kit. And then as we turn over, I'm going to keep these together because it'll stop them flopping about. You can see here we've got instructions to remove what is quite a simplistic looking funnel top and replace it with the photo etch, and doesn't that look great? And then we've got replacement photo etch. We saw that as a big thick plastic part, so that's good. We've got our aircraft trolleys, a replacement boom for the rear mast, and photo etched catapults. So that's really nice as well. They're going to look quite busy. And then when we go to this sheet, we've got replacement track for the aircraft. So that's really quite nice. Railing positions, quite a lot of them for our deck there where the searchlights are. It's telling us to cut sections out. Okay, quite a lot of modification needed actually. And then look at all that going on the funnels. The funnels are going to look seriously busy when done. Yeah, but don't they look nice? Absolutely. Then we've got a lot of parts being added to the bridge area. So doors, railings mainly, so none of it too taxing. Seem to have a framework there for the bridge windows to replace the plastic part, maybe. Yeah, I think so. And we can see the other side here again, more railings, doors, grab handles and so on. And getting a bit closer here and cross-reference some of the parts, so that's nice. And then some of the parts that they've had built up, you can see them in position, so it's telling you the sub-assemblies there. And then we're adding things like davits and the like. And yeah, that is it. So quite a lot of photo etch. Let's have a quick look at that. Take out of these packets, we can see that it's nice relief etched photo etch. We've got a whole array of doors here, more than appeared to be pointed out. So some careful study is going to be needed. We've got replacement propellers there, all sorts of structural bits, and that I didn't see in those instructions. The davits look really, really nice. Really nice, those davits. And we've got some ladders as well. And then we flick over and we've got some replacement structural parts. We've got our catapults there. They look nice. And lots of railings, different formats. Some of them chain, some of them bar. Deck gun mounting points. Maybe some of this etch is for different variations of the ship, possibly. Interesting, it's got one of her sister ships referenced on the actual etch. And then more railings and turntables and catapult bits and our crane boom. What we've not got is railing for around the outside edges of the main decks, so we still need to add some photo etch to this. Then when we look at our pedestal, we can see we've got two sprues the same. One of them's got a bit scratched because of the way they've stacked them, but once you've primed it and painted it, it should look fine. The shape is really quite nice. I think they look quite pretty. Yeah, no problems with those. Clear parts now, we've got two of these included. So that gives us in total 8 searchlights, 4 large, 4 small. So search and signal lamps, I'm guessing. And then we've got a surprising number of windows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sets of windows. I'm sure I only saw possibly 2 in the instructions, although we have jogged through them fairly quickly. But we've got 2 sets of these, so I don't know why they didn't do those separately, because we surely don't need 2 of each of those. That seems a bit wasteful, but yeah, very nice. The fact that they've done them clear means that we can paint the backs, paint them silver, and hopefully that'll all come out. And they do look like they've got bulbs in, but I think it's actually, there's like a little hole in the back, so yeah, they do look like they've got bulbs in, don't they? Yeah, very nice. The next bag has 3 sprues in it. So we're just doing them in the order as they come out, and you can see there's quite a lot of release agent on this, so it will need a good wash. So we've got a deck section here, which is, it's a nice hard plastic, I've got to say, and the detail on it is really nice. See, there's a lot of detail on there, and a hair that's bothering me. Go away. All of our little lockers on there have got hinge detail on them, which is nice. And then we don't have open gantries going down. They've all got their doors closed, but they are there. We've even got some relief marked on the deck there, at deck level. And then we've got some separate deck fittings here. So we know they get replaced by photo etch, for example. But if you don't fancy the photo etch, you've got the plastic there. It's always an option, photo etch, never something you've got to do. The capstans have got lovely detail on top. They're not just flat as a lot of companies would do. Got some, that's our little davits for the going near the torpedo doors. Lots of little boxes, loads and loads of detail on it, packed with detail. And then even our mushroom vents have got sort of a mesh detail on them. Can you see that? I don't know anyone else that does that, so that's a really nice level of moulding. That is really nice. Lovely. Next sprue has the guns on, and I have to say the blast bags, this is slide moulded. So we've got open guns, gun barrels, which is really nice, but the blast bags look dreadful. Yeah, that they need to put some work on that. Yeah, I think a little bit of work with a needle file and maybe a chisel and scraping out some lines and reshaping it would improve them. But basically what you've got is a flat, completely flat slab side with some engraving on it, which is the same on all the bags, doesn't look brill. I'm sort of thinking, cut them off there, get some brass barrels and make some blast bags yourself out of milliput, yeah, they're not brill, but nice that we've got open barrels. And then we've got some booms and maybe yard arms, maybe jack staffs. There's a little bit of a bow to this, so I'm a bit concerned that the parts might be a bit bent. Certainly they look like they could be. Whether that's a problem or not, we won't know till we build. And our next sprue has got mast parts on, which have got door detail and things on. A little bit, not flashy, but you can see some seam. So they need a bit of a scrape, and these are the support parts again, a little bit of a scrape. And then we've got the funnel tops, which have ejector pins which need to be thinned down because you can see them from above. But then we've got photo etch to replace them anyway. And then our master yard arm, which has lamps and stuff moulded in, so that all looks lovely too. So the next part has two of these sprue E's, which is dealing with the main guns primarily, and they are very nicely detailed. Very nicely detailed. Lots of texture on those, and then we know we've got photo etch, which will just uplift them even more. And then we've got our gun bases, and I'm not sure what those are, but I have seen them before on Japanese ships, so if you know what they are, I'd be interested to know. Is it torpedo storage or something like that, maybe? And then we've got some more guns. This time they don't have open ends, but they do have awful ugly blast bags as well, so we definitely have to do something with those. They just don't look right, do they? So our next sprue deals with the aircraft, and I do have to say the plastic is nice and hard plastic, so it'll be good to work with. So I think we've got both our aircraft, one of each, included in the kit. So all nicely moulded. We've got panel lines on there which obviously are overscale, but once painted up and given a wash, they just look right. We've got plastic windows, so you're going to have to paint them in a colour of choice to make them look like glass. The plastic moulding is not too thick on the supports for the floats. That's as thin as they could get away with, and it actually work. So yeah, I'm not unhappy with those at all, really. They're certainly no worse than what you get from Trumpeter. I think maybe the Tamiya ones are perhaps slightly better. So our first bag has the hull halves. It also has this, which looks like a torpedo bulge. I don't remember that in the instructions at all, to be honest, but it clearly goes over the top of our hull. So whether that's for a later version, I don't know, but I don't remember that in the instructions. It's completely featureless, which I'm sure is supposedly correct. Let's have a look at the hull halves. So that has a lot of detail on. It has our panel lines on. That is very nice, actually. Hand irons are depicted at the front there. And then as we go down, we can see there's detail underneath the hull, which is often missing. We've got some lovely texturing there, rivet detail going on. Obviously, we don't know without further investigation whether the scuttles are in the right places, and what I can't see is any blanked off scuttles, which was common practice, so that probably needs looking at as well. And we do have a moulded on propeller guard, but I seem to think they were added separately in the instructions. I'm hoping there's a photo etch replacement because that doesn't look right and wants coming off really. You could make your own out of a bit of plastic strip anyway, and then more hand irons and a moulded on anchor at the end. Our cleats are moulded on, so they're the thickness of the plastic. But yeah, that's a nice looking hull actually. Clearly no waterline version, but yeah, I have no issues with that. That's a really nice, there's no distortion in the scuttles. That's really nice. It has a lovely flare to it as well. It's a lovely shape. Very nice. Okay, our next sprue again has more deck on, and then we've got various sort of deck fittings and parts of the superstructure and so on. If we look at the deck first, we can see we've got the continuation of the linoleum deck. There's like a kedge anchor or something like that moulded into place, which is a little odd possibly. But yeah, we've got a little bit more drilling that we have to do underneath, but most of the holes are in this time. And then if we look at this deck, we've got a combination of smooth and textured steel deck. So there are some areas that will be smooth, some of it will be under superstructure of course, but there are some areas that won't have texture. But we've got different textures, so you've got like a grating, and then you've got the diamond pattern, so you've got some really nice texturing of the decks there. Not quite sure what these are. There's a number of sort of featureless lumps, and they stand out because there's so much detail being added to other parts. But some forms of lockers, maybe ready-use lockers or something like that. And then we can see we've got a rear bulkhead here. It's got the ventilators moulded in. It does have plastic stairs. So you know I'm going to want to remove those and put some photo etch in. I didn't see photo etch ladders in the photo etch sets, I don't think, so we might need some additional photo etch to cover that off. And then we've got some superstructure here in the corner that's got windows in, and clearly we've got a platform to go in there because there's a ladder and a door. So again, things we could replace if we wish to, but they are well moulded as they are. We've got more doors on these structures. Our little platforms have got textured decks as well, so it's all in keeping, and we can see we've got lots of sort of hinge detail and stuff on these boxes and stuff. There's a nice cross hatch pattern on that deck there. Yeah, lovely detail. That goes up our funnel, and then if we flip it over, yeah, I think most of the ejector pin marks will be hidden, so I don't think we've got any issues. There's a couple there that'll have to be sorted. It's minor stuff. Yeah, all very nice. It's all crisp enough. There's no flash. Didn't see any sink in this. Nice. Right, our next sprue has got structural parts on for the masts, and we've got some of the pipe work to go up the funnels there, which all looks quite nicely done, doesn't it? And then more superstructure parts. I think that goes underneath that. Yeah. There's some parts here that we know we can change out with the Hasegawa sets, for example. where that's moulded solid, and we could get that as it really needs to be open loops. So there is 1 or 2 bits there that we can work to change. I'm not sure if we've got a short shot there. Looks like we might have. That's detached at some point. It was originally there, but that looks like that might be a short shot, whatever that is. Otherwise all good. Then we have this rather vacant sprue. Part 1 is missing. I assume it's supposed to be missing. Doesn't look like it was moulded at all, and there was nothing loose in the bag. But we've got the front and rear sections of the ship there, which look nicely done. Some more pipe work and bits of superstructure, I think. Possibly we've got to sort out a couple of ejector pin marks in those. I'm not quite sure what those are. One of the bigger sprues now, and we've got our section of deck with the tracks for the aircraft, and you can see actually it's nicely moulded, better than some I've seen. You've got the tracks there, you've got the turntables there, you've got the little spars that go between them as the originals did. So that in itself is quite nice. Obviously we've got photo etch to remove all of that, but around it you've got a textured deck, so you're going to have to remove this very, very carefully if indeed you decide to. I'm not worried about that sink because that'll get covered up, and we've got plastic ladders there that we can get rid of, but otherwise that's a nice part. Got some small superstructure parts again with nice texturing. These are the stands for the binoculars and things. They could be better. Gun emplacements, nicely textured deck, and the same with our observation points there. Not quite sure what that's supposed to be. Has like a cross hatch on it. And then when we come to our bridge parts, look at the detail on those. We've got 3 different types of watertight door on there. We've got little hand irons everywhere. We've got a life preserver, all sorts of trunking and cabling. Doesn't that look busy? That looks so nice. Detail on there is superb, absolutely superb. And obviously that's the other side. Again, the sprue has broken a little bit. There's quite a bit of movement in the box, so these are getting a little bit battered, so some care in handling the box, I think. You can see here we've got our lights. They've been nicely done. Yeah, not much wrong with that, I think. So we have another very strangely vacant sprue here, massive gaps with nothing in. So I imagine stuff's been removed from how it was originally tooled. So maybe as they've added upgraded parts, they've taken other parts away, I don't know. We've got our pyrovanes here, and they are very nicely done. And then we've got some vent faces, which again are actually quite nicely done. I'm not quite sure. Oh, vent faces on the other side there. Some part of the superstructure, not sure what. This is our starfish. In plastic it's a bit heavy, but actually it's been a nice job of moulding it. I'm sure we can replace that. Then our capstans. And then unfortunately our crane boom has broken away. It's a good job we've got a photo etch one, because that is actually quite heavily damaged now. Where it should grab the mast and swing. Whether that's repairable, possible, but we've got a replacement, so I'm not going to worry too much. Then we have our mast. I'm not quite sure what that is. Too thick to be a flagstaff. Probably part of the mast, I would imagine. So our next sprue has the supports, the deck supports and bracing for the hull, and then we have our propellers, which are quite nicely done actually. We've got our bridge front there, which is quite distinctive, looks really quite nice. These are where our polycaps go in for the rudders, and then we've got our rudder, which again looks really quite nice. Some more shaft lines, that looks a little bit bent, but we probably replace those with metal anyway. Yeah, and then we have our funnels. Don't they look busy already? And that's before we put the photo etch on. So the photo etch will replace these little lines here. But yeah, we've got some pipe work on, but most of it is being added separately. We've got the ventilators at the bottom, which look really nice. Yeah, that looks really good. And then we have this other funnel here, just the same. The actual top of the funnels aren't superb, but painted and then the funnel cap over the top would look alright. But we have photo etch to put in there, so that's all good. And then we have our tops for our main guns there, which also look great. Very nice, nothing wrong with that at all. So our next bag appears to have two of the same sprue. We also have a number of, I'm not sure if the parts have broken off or whether they were just attached to these and they've got broken off in the process. Maybe they were attached to the end like so and they've just not survived. Yeah, I think they were sticking out of the ends of the sprue and just haven't survived. So might as well chuck those in the bin. Okay, so we have a director which has come off one of the sprues. So I'm going to put this sprue back in the bag before I lose anything. So what we have is our gun shields. You can see there's some nice texturing on there. That all looks good. So that's the front face and our two sides, and then the gun will mount in there. Little bit of seam cleanup and that'll look lovely. Now we can see here that we've got torpedo tubes again and torpedoes. Torpedoes look fine, but these tubes aren't as good as the others we saw. So I'm guessing what we saw was some replacements to the original's upgraded moulding. but these could be actually cut down and used as loose ones stowed against the bulkheads. We've also got search lamps here that aren't clear parts, so again we must have upgrades with the clear plastic ones we've seen. But we've got our davits, which look quite nice. We have some superstructure parts, I'm not quite sure. We've got the plastic aircraft trolleys, which they've done a fairly good job of moulding, but they're a bit two-dimensional, so the photo etch will certainly improve them. Director tops, our gun barrels, they look really nicely done. Anchor has a lot of detail. We've got our radar there. And look at the texturing on there, the detail and texturing on that part. It's fabulous. Very nicely done. You can see our binoculars. And we've got various rangefinders and the like. Then we have catapult parts, which we know we can replace with photo etch, but these have quite a nice detail on them anyway. So again, we have two of these sprues included, and you can see we have the gun emplacements that we've just seen, but in a simpler format. So I think these are the original kit parts, some of which are used and some of which are replaced. You can also see that the davits are sort of one-sided, whereas the others were moulded on both sides. We've got more directors and bits and pieces there, but yeah, that's definitely a simpler gun emplacement, done in a different way. So I think those aren't used. And then we've got lots of little parts, not quite sure what they are. But yeah, I think some of these parts are definitely redundant, and when they've added new parts, basically they've improved the parts. So on that basis, the later you get this model, the better. So interestingly, the next sprue out, we have two of these, which means we appear to have a lot more boats than is actually used on the model. On the model there's only 3 fitted, and you know, if we just count the upturned hulls, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, so I've got 16 boats and I need 3 of them. They are quite basic, the ship's boats, I have to say. These aren't too bad here. They've got some deck detail on, but these are quite basic, as are these. There is some texturing to the surface, but there's no, well, I suppose when it goes on there you get some form of detail. I've definitely seen better, and they might be worth swapping out depending on which ones you're using. And then we've got lots and lots of little mushroom vents that get fitted at the start of the build, and I guess that's why we've got 2 of these sprues. And then lots of deck guns and double machine guns, and then we've got pyrovanes again. So we'll have a fair number of spares coming out of this kit, I think. So 2 sprues again, and I have bits dropping off the other one, but they are just clinging on this one. And we seem to have part of the bow, maybe, is it? I don't know. Don't know if that's done. I don't remember that being used. We've got another rudder there, so I've got 3 rudders in total, and I've got more hull bracers. So again, I think these have been updated in some way. and we're not using them. We've also got propellers, and actually these seem thinner. I like these more than the others. And then we've got this, I just don't know what it is. If anyone has a clue what that is that's going on the stern of the outside of the hull, I would love to know. We've got lots of binoculars there, quite nicely done, and more shaft lines. Now these seem improved, they're thinner. So these could be the updated parts maybe, because you've got improved propellers, nice crisp binoculars. We've got the propeller guards there that absolutely look the part. Yeah, I think this is the improved kit. We've got all our cable reels there, which are relatively nicely depicted, but not as nice as photo etch. But we can use the barrel centers that have got textures on, so that's good. Yep, I think these are upgraded parts, which is why it's coming in with some better details. For those of you who are interested, that is her in her green camouflage. Doesn't she look stunning in the green? So that might be a way to go, though that's 1945, so you'd have to just check your references. And you can find that in the 3D super drawings of the Takao by Kaguru. So there you have it, the Aoshima 1:350 scale Takao in her 1942. Guys, what is my first impression? I think let's start with the overall impression, which is it's a really detailed, impressive, involved model kit. What you've got is a heavy cruiser that is pre-war, but you can see how the wartime ships have developed from her. You can see a lot of common features that then filter through to other ships later on. So I think it's an interesting ship from that point of view, that it's taking you into the wartime ships. I think it's a lovely and interesting ship in its own right. Not as industrial looking as some Japanese ships. It has a little bit more style and some more sleeker lines, but fundamentally it looks very Imperial Japanese Navy. The kit itself has lots and lots of detail. There's lots of texturing. The real focal points, the funnels, the decks, the main guns, the masts have got everything on that you want. The superstructure has got tons and tons of detail in there. You could build it straight out of the box, and a lot of modelers would be very, very happy with that. So upsides is lots of detail, a well thought out instruction manual with a build process that makes sense. I probably wouldn't step away from the build process very much, if at all. It is that logical. Other highlights, we've got depth markers on our decals, which is lovely. And we've got photo etch in this particular kit, so do check what you get in the kit, because there's so many re-releases with different things in. I generally think the later you go, the better, but the photo etch really will uplift it, and the fact that you get the photo etch in for the same money is fabulous. So yeah, all in all, a nice kit. Downsides. There are one or two details that are a little bit lacking. Only one or two. The ship's boats could do with a little bit of work and so on, but otherwise pretty much okay. The main downside is you've got no photo etch railings, but if you've got an earlier kit you won't have any photo etch at all. And you know, that's Trumpeter sometimes includes them, sometimes doesn't. Tamiya never include them, so it depends on the modeler whether they want to put them on or not. Some people don't want the faff of it, but for me it doesn't look right without them, so we do need to add something to it. I like the fact that you've got two different stands in there. I personally really like the pedestals. It's just a nicer way of displaying. So yeah, I think it's a lovely kit. There is one or two things you could throw at it. We haven't got a rigging plan, but obviously you can do some rigging. There's more photo etch to be chucked at it in the way of photo etch ladders and doors and stuff, and you might want to consider replacing the chunky rubber degaussing cable with the Tamiya photo etch degaussing cable, which is a fantastic product, beautiful product. But otherwise, I think you've pretty much got a good kit straight out of the box. I'm not going to give you a price because they are difficult to come by. You have to wait, and then when you spot one, pounce on it. So pretty much the seller can dictate the price, because certainly in the UK they are hard to come by. But if you can get hold of one, that is a lovely kit, and I am absolutely looking forward to buying it. So there, if you're interested to know what you get in the Takao kit, you now know. I hope that was useful and interesting. You enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon. Thanks for watching.